Hi, I'm Adrian Tan, and this is my podcast where I deep dive into matters surrounding HR tech and the future of work. I was a former HR serial entrepreneur and write extensively about the future of work on my blog. You may know me better through the Singapore HR Tech Market Map that I created in 2017. In this podcast, I speak with the people who are enabling the future of work. From mindfulness coach to employee engagement platform, they are all helping companies to better navigate rising work and business demands. I'm hoping their sharing in this podcast will help you better prepare yourself and your business for what the future of work may bring. Chiou Hao is currently the COO of JustLogin, a Singapore-based HR software as a service provider. He has been with the company for over 5 years and has grown the business from a 10-man operation to 80 employees and has grown the revenue by 300%. Prior to JustLogin, Chiou has spent almost a decade in business development roles in various notable software companies like Salesforce.com, QlikTech, SumTotal Systems and Mambu. He was also an entrepreneur who founded 2 venture capital-backed internet companies which were eventually acquired. Hi Chiou Hao, thank you for coming onto the show.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks for having me on the show.
Firstly, super belated congratulations to your collaboration, JustLogin collaboration with MatchMove to drive financial wellness for SME. That's something pretty interesting. I have never seen anything of such in Singapore context. Could you help us to understand more about this collaboration that you're having with them?
So we signed a collaboration with MatchMove about last year, middle of last year. So I think the main point here is that we have been working on this collaboration actually for a while. So one of the key problems that we have been trying to address has been around the whole change in how workers are being paid nowadays, right? We're seeing a lot of this new economy evolving to be a very gig-like economy. So they call it the gig economy now. I mean, you see in the works, paying, using Grab, Food Panda, all these workers, they're not really real workers or permanent contracts workers that you see in the past where, a full-time employee will, let's say a McDonald's driver will just work for McDonald's and that's it. So what we found is because of this evolution of the internet and all this new technology and all that, this gig economy is highly nowadays, right? A lot of companies are starting to do it. New business models are evolving from it. And one of the key challenges we see in this space is the challenge of paying workers in this kind of setup. And therefore, when we look at it, this one of the key challenges: how do we get funds out to these gig workers at a much faster pace than what was traditionally done in traditional payroll, right? Most of the time, it's about running a pay run at the end of the month, and then you maybe take 3 to 4 days to transfer the money into the bank account, and so forth. But nowadays, with this gig economy, gig workers, they want to be paid almost right after the job is done because they might not come into work the next day, or the next shift could happen to them maybe a couple of weeks from now, a couple of days from now. So this speed of economy is kind of driving this, and we were looking at this problem for a while. So therefore, I mean, this collaboration with MatchMove was very ideal because MatchMove was looking into the e-wallet space, and they have with this collaboration where she built a payroll wallet. We're in the process of rolling that out, and which will allow us to do real-time payments to salaries, and maybe using that wallet to even link to other financial products out in the market, right? Insurance and all that. So we were looking at this problem, and I think the evolution of fintech and HR is coming together, and it was a very natural discussion, and we see a lot of potential in this collaboration.
It sounds like the number of gig workers or workforce within companies' engagement seems to be growing significantly, which I guess led JustLogin and MeshMove to come to something like this. Do you have any data or insights on the percentage or the number of growth over the past few years?
Off the hand, I don't have those numbers, unfortunately. I mean, these numbers right now, I mean, it's all kind of new data. If you realize a lot of it is driven by COVID as well, right? What we've seen is that the matter of fact is that more and more customers over the last, I would say, maybe last 12 to 18 months, right, are coming to us about faster payments. They are no longer looking at doing once a month pay run. There are some companies asking us for daily pay runs. So the percentages are still very small. I still say in the single digits, right? But I think generally we're going to see that this is still going to grow. So definitely see more such demands. And especially nowadays, companies are also operating in different countries, in different region on day one. Most companies they start straight away. They have maybe a development office in maybe in Vietnam. They have their CTO based on different countries. So we're seeing the use of these wallets potential in actually in a lot of these countries that are coming out as well.
It actually sounds like a very interesting idea, even for non-gig worker. Like for myself, every time I have to buy something on behalf of the company, I have to wait like 1 full month for the claim. And if I miss the cutoff, then another month of waiting. Would this also be something that non-gig worker could actually benefit from?
Definitely, definitely. So the way we see this wallet kind of evolving is the sense that if it's tightly integrated to a payroll system like ours, we expect it to be able to do real-time payments. Maybe you finish a job, and if the company allows it, you know what, you can run a pay run immediately at the end of the day and transfer out the expenses, the reimbursements, the salary payments on the day itself when the job is done. And immediately then those funds will be electronically transferred to the wallet, and therefore you will get paid at the end of the day. I mean, straight away you can use the money in the wallet. So I definitely see a lot of potential in this. It doesn't just have to apply to gig workers, permanent workers like yourself. With these fast payments, this can be applied to anybody.
And you have been in this space for quite a number of years, and JustLogin has been in this space for even much longer, decades since then. How has the payroll scene evolved from the first day JustLogin entered into the picture to where we are today?
I mean, JustLogin has been around for about 20 odd years, right? 21 to be exact. Myself, I'm in this HR space, HR tech space for the last 8 years, close to a decade, I would say. And in this last 8 to 10 years, I would say that generally, in my view, or even from the company's experience, is that companies has kind of like the has moved a little bit. I would say the pace of pay of these payroll payments, etc., has definitely got faster, right? I mean, earlier days, I mean, these these systems are used to be done in such a way whereby a company will run maybe let's say a huge company like HP, right? They will run like thousands of pay runs, in one day. One pay run, but thousands of employees in one day, and they have to do it within maybe a week ahead, just so that they can print out the CD-ROM and bring it to the bank. And then the bank will then use the CD-ROM or even data that they have and disperse it to their employees, right?
Okay, Chiou Hao, I need to stop you here. For the
Sure.
benefit of our younger audience, what is a CD-ROM?
Okay. Well, CD-ROM is a little disc that used to be a shiny disc, right? I mean, if you think about it, the olden days where you used to play CDs, data used to be stored in these mediums. It was before the internet evolved. Data was actually transferred around in this medium. So this data storage, right, is imagine like is similar to what they call a USB stick right now. Before that, there was no USB stick, right? So data at the time, or employee data at the time, was actually transferred, okay, to the banks in the CD-ROM for huge enterprises. So I can imagine the pain that these big companies have, and plus at the SMB level, these were actually being paid by checks. A lot of times with handwritten checks, handwritten payments, or even a computer printed out checks, right? That will be mailed to the employee or handed out to the employee manually, and they had to bring those checks to the bank themselves. That was back then. So you can imagine the process of that. So by the time from the company finish the pay run, the point in time when the money reaches the hands of employee, it could easily be of a whole week or two before it gets to the employee. So I can imagine that kind of decision. So in that case, you're not gonna be able to capture a lot of real time data. You can't say that I finished a job today, I'll get paid today. You finish a job today, you probably wait 2 or 3 weeks to even get paid, or next month to get paid. So what we've seen is that with that, the digitization, the cloud-based apps that happen, cloud-based technology that happen, especially for us like JustLogin because we're on the cloud, it means it's accessible by the internet. Companies can now run pay runs at a much faster pace, right? They are actually processing it within a day or two, but only still challenge the banks. They also allow to receive such data, through their online portals. But the problem is that the banks, in most cases, are still needs 2 or 3 day cutoff, right? Because they need to consolidate everybody. So they always have a case whereby payroll administrators, they will have a deadline. They will need to finish their pays runs about at least 3 to 4 days before the actual last day of the month. Otherwise, the banks will not be able to disperse the salary fast enough. So we get frantic calls. We get frantic calls all the time in our system, in our company, right? 2 days before pay run. Maybe there was an error in the pay run calculation. There was maybe some variables they forgot to add in. They would frantically call, I need to get this out by 6 p.m. because that's the bank cutoff. And this is a big challenge, this is a big pain. So with this, where we see this evolving next is that there banks are starting to open it up, which allows us to have what you call API connections, backend connection to the banks, which allows them to say, hey, I run my pay run, I click the button, it sends information straight to the bank, pull the funds out, and immediately disperse it to the employee, all within a matter of seconds. So you can imagine the kind of stress that the payroll administrators, the kind of things that companies can do now with these real-time payments and real-time pay runs, it will significantly shorten the time that the money will get to the employees. And I think generally this will be beneficiary for everybody. Employees don't have to wait too long, they have to miss a deadline. Imagine I got a loan payment on the first of the month, but if the company misses it by a day, I'll be late. I got a credit card payment, I got a bank payment, right? Banks themselves charge interest if you miss by a day. So these are very critical things that a lot of companies have to consider when they start building out their payroll systems, because in the future these things are all going to be faster and much shorter time. And whether your HR system can catch up to do that, that's the question that companies have to ask their vendors.
This conversation really bring me back decades in time because when I was still running my recruitment business, we were doing payroll as well, and I was often the person doing the pay run, and I can understand the exact pain, the T-1, T-2, the gyro payment, and of course, over and above, printing out the payslip and all that is painful. And we actually had people coming to us citing the exact same thing. Oh, because the pay is late, I missed this payment, the bank charged me interest. Are you going to bear the interest? And there were a few times we actually had to bear the interest because it's our fault. But I think through this conversation, I also realized actually the situation is not so much on the payroll vendor side. It is really due to the inflexibility on the banking side. Because for the longest time, we were only on gyro. Then right now, of course, we have fast payment. And of course, moving ahead, we will be looking at a few digital banks coming into the picture. And I understand you came from the digital banking background. Really want to understand and tap on your opinion on what you foresee the kind of things, the kind of impact it would have on employers, on companies, as well as employees who will be getting their salary through these new digital banks. What kind of things can they look forward to?
I mean, this is it's definitely a very interesting time now. I mean, just a little story on my end, right? I mean, for example, recently I no, got a friend who moved to a new country, all right, and he needs to move to a new country, and one of the few things that he needed the moment he landed, even on the first thing he can't keep paying by his credit card because every time you pay by a credit card, the exchange rate, the fees, and the card's charges, he loses so much money, right? So he was like desperately trying to open a local bank account. And by the time he opens a bank account, he needs to get the funds in. You can imagine if he would do it like a couple of years back, getting the funds across would probably take a couple of days. And from the moment the bank deducts the money from your bank account, it'll probably be a very nerve-wracking 3 or 4 days before your funds get into the other side in the traditional way. And like during these 3 or 4 days, the guy's wondering, oh, did I enter the wrong bank number? Did I I mean, that kind of anxiety and stress, it's totally unnecessary. But in this real-time world nowadays, you transfer funds overseas is all in real time in the sense that you can receive the money within a matter of minutes. And that itself is a huge relief because if suddenly I got an emergency use case, maybe I need to, I got into an unforeseen accident overseas and I need to get paid, transferring cross borders now is no longer as painful as it was. So similarly, I'm just trying to amplify this, right? I mean, these are all real time case, and in employees scenario, the way we see it nowadays is that interestingly, especially even in Singapore today, there are still a lot of companies or employees who are living paycheck to paycheck. For example, I spoke to some of my clients before. I was like wondering, why do you need to run your pay run every 3 days? And what they tell me is right now they actually pay their employees every 3 days because these are like the low wage workers, okay? Those are the blue collar workers who pretty much living paycheck to paycheck. And they right now, the way they disperse the money, the salaries, is through cash. They actually have employees lined up in the office maybe at 6 o'clock every day, and they will disperse the cash to them, right? And that is it. Just when you deal with cash in such a manner, especially the company, that's you just open up a whole bunch of loopholes, right? I mean, there will be cases whereby this company was saying, what I worry about is that in this kind of case, is that my branch manager who is dispersing cash, they can actually claim that there's an employee, but there is probably a ghost employee in the company. So there could be things. It just puts it out there. You could potential fraud cases and all that could happen in such a scenario, and companies are at a loss of what to do. So without a proper paper trail, if you're dealing in cash, it makes this kind of fraud incidents even milder. And employees and they probably don't have a proper black and white whether they get paid or not, and it's very difficult to dispute. So what we've seen is that these kind of real-time payments or this kind of fast movement of cash is absolutely necessary, especially in this real world, right? In this internet-connected world, where if employee A can feel that your company is providing this kind of facility, it will be a definitely a draw to for you to for this employee to work for your company versus going to company B, which requires them to pay them maybe every in such a cycle that's really maybe 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. I rather work for the company that pays immediately. So I
So
think
the increased frequency in pay run can actually become an employer value proposition because of the necessity behind this requirement to have the cash in hand as soon as possible.
that's right. I mean, this is definitely a big draw. It could be a cut. That's why we saw employee wellness, employee welfare. And a lot of times nowadays, if you think about the cost of living in Singapore, it's not exactly the cheapest place on this planet, right? And you got to go in an accident, there's a COVID, a restaurant closes down, my business failed. Cash like that, I need my spouse salary immediately to make a short-term payment. You hear this all the time. And we found that this is in Singapore, right? And we found that as you move out of Singapore to the region, to like Malaysia, to Indonesia, to Philippines, these cases are even more rampant. And if companies don't look into the employees' welfare, especially when it comes to financial wellness, what will employees do? They will turn out to outside sources. They'll turn out to, loan sharks. They'll turn out to payday loans. And these organizations outside, they just charge a way higher interest. And before you know it, you've got this financially distressed employee. It's not going to be a productive asset to your organization, right? I mean, he's going to be stressed out. I mean, if you think about it, when you start and having such a workforce, if half, if you got a lot of blue collar workforce, chances are a majority of them will be stressed out if they can't get quick access to cash, especially when times of crisis. So this is one of the ways that we see companies providing for their employees and looking after their employees, in which return employees will be more loyal to your organization.
And I think above that, fraud prevention may also be another thing to look at. In fact, when you mentioned this, a story came to my mind. I have a friend who runs a logistic company, And at one period of time, he was so trusting in the general manager. Every time there's a pay run, he just hands him a stack of cash. Go and pay the people. And that's what he did. Nobody complained. Everything is good. But over time, he realized, why is the P&L of the company always so bad? And as time progressed, the general manager started to upgrade, moving from buying from one car to two cars, from a HDB to condo, while the owner himself is still staying in a HDB. So he realized something is wrong, and exactly something did went wrong, because the general manager with the cash, he was able to allocate the money according to his calculation, and whatever surplus, he will go straight into his pocket. So skipping this cash transaction definitely would help in many different aspects. And of course, with the, like what you said, the infusion of a good payroll system, the digital banking network coming into play, all this will definitely help to speed things up for this group of people. I am actually quite surprised that in today's age and time, people are still gravitating towards the cash transaction. It sounded really to me like a 1950s kind of show where cash is still something that people queue up after a hard day of work just to collect.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised. I'm actually surprised that it still happened today. And unfortunately, cash is the fastest way to disperse money, right? Think about it. Handing out cold hard cash is the fastest way to disperse money. But unfortunately, I mean, the thing is, you can't. The only way to disperse it faster than that is probably now, right now, through all these digital wallets, right? And all this fast pay initiative. So I've come across some other scenarios as well. It's a bit more interesting. Like some of the scenarios will be, what happens to, let's say, a company that is, a shipping company. We got a lot of sailors out at sea, and the challenge there, how do you pay them? Because they don't really have a port of call. They don't even have a proper bank account. If you think about it, right? The sailors are probably from maybe, I don't know, Indonesia, but I'm right now traveling through Europe. I can access my bank account, right? Because I'm on the ship. So some of the use cases that we heard about these wallets are these sailors, right? They actually have a debit card, which then the company can pay straight into these wallets, and at the next port of call, they can straight away use these wallets on debit card. Immediately it goes start payment. So these are all scenarios that we have looked at, and even horror stories that I've heard across the region. For example, in places like Indonesia, you got some factory that's maybe out, palm oil factory that's out in the jungles, and it's a very rural area. And every month, because they're paying by cash, they will actually have this truck, this armored vehicle, drive through those jungles to get to that factory. And then there'll be, people, because they were afraid that on the way they could get robbed. So so they will disperse cash on that spot because they've got this armored vehicle with all the cash receipts going out to those factories in rural areas, and then they will disperse the salaries that way. That's how it's done in third world countries, and you'll be amazed. It's happening as we speak. So this the fintech play in this company, we see a lot of value in these countries because there are a lot significant amount of population in those places still underbanked and unbanked.
It's definitely something really amusing, especially for someone like myself who live in Singapore. This kind of situation that you just mentioned, it's very distant for me, but definitely they're happening in real life. And so I can imagine the kind of disruption that improvement in digital banking service will really bring across to the entire value chain, and simply just minimizing the requirement of armored trucks driving 5 hours from HQ or from the bank all the way to the factory, which are miles away. And one thing that I'm also quite curious to find out from you, because I noticed that the collaboration is with MatchMove, which is an up and coming fintech, and it's not with a traditional banking company like a DBS, a UOB. In your opinion, why are traditional banks so slow or so hesitant in moving things forward? They seems to be taking a very laid back approach in trying to catch up with modern times. Why is that the case?
Well, my take is this, right? These banks, it's not that they are slow, but they have a lot of legacy and a lot of things at stake. So for them, they're working very closely with the regulators. Everything they do is closely watched by the regulators. Can you imagine the likes of DBS or the likes of UOB, for example? And for them, anything that they do, they're always very concerned. What if there's a security breach? What if it goes against MAS regulations? What if it goes against US regulation for that matter? So for them, every decision, I mean, it's a huge organization. Decisions go through many layers. Everybody have a concern. It's going to take them a long time. Second thing, that's on the decision level. But then there's another factor which is on the system level. They're really managing so much transactions in their core systems. And don't forget, they've been in the banking industry for many, many decades, many years, or if not hundreds of years. So for them, they have a lot of old systems their, in their technology stack, right? Within deploying. And for them to launch into something so new, first thing that they have to think about is, do they rewrite or do they redeploy or do they build new systems on top of it? And how does it be compatible with other systems that they have? They have to consider all these factors before they launch anything. So therefore, when it comes to launching new systems, it's going to take them a much longer time because there are more considerations. Whereas the fintechs themselves, like MatchMove, I mean, they have a clean slate. They don't come in with already a million customers under the belt or a gazillion amount of money in their vault for that matter, right? So for them, they could come in a clean slate without the legacy issues, and they will be more nimble. So for us, the collaboration on MatchMove came to a point whereby they actually came to us with a full set of technology already on the platform. They have all APIs all ready, and we all we need to do is just to speak to them and do the integration. And for us, the integration what took us a couple of months would have taken us years to do with a traditional bank. So I will say that it's unfortunate, but this is probably the reality of the world, right? Traditional banks will never be able to move as fast as a later fintech because of the legacies that they have.
And thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. It has been very interesting to learn from you about the payroll landscape, the digital banking system, and all that. And for people that is interested to find out more about JustLogin, perhaps you can help us to understand what's next, what's upcoming, as well as where can they go to.
Well, our website is easily remembered, justlogin.com, right? As one word. And what's happening on our plate is this. I mean, we have been looking at HR platform. So when we talk about HR platform, we're looking into payroll, leave management, time and attendance. We have spent pretty much the last 20 years kind of, rolling that out. But I think the next phase in our development is towards the area of fintech, which is areas like employee wellness, because we touch payroll, right? When we touch payroll, we actually have a lot of opportunities to explore what companies can do with employees' payroll, right? Maybe access to benefits. Companies can look into using our system for benefits management, especially in areas of fintech, areas of insurance, and so forth. So what we'll see from us is in the next 12 to 18 months is a lot more exciting developments around the space of digital wallets, into the space of insurance, employee benefits, and all that. And we would like to kind of help companies look into the challenges that the gig workers are looking at. Will be as more gig workers come aboard these new companies, I will expect them to provide them with the tools to help them to address this new change in the whole landscape.
We'll look forward to it, and thank you so much again for coming on to the show, and I wish you continued success in your journey with JustLogin. Thank you for listening to the podcast. You can refer to the show notes for links to more information about our guests and their businesses. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would be helpful to give a review on iTunes or follow me on Spotify. If you're using Overcast, please hit the star button under the episode. That will help get this episode and podcast out to more people who may find it useful. I'll see you in the next episode of The Adrian Han Show.